Hi, everybody. This is Mitch Tanenbaum again. Thanks for listening. This is going to be a conversation about one of the challenges that defense contractors are wrestling with, whether we're talking about 800-171, the current standard, or whether we're talking about CMMC. It really doesn't make any difference. And that is trying to understand what exactly is controlled unclassified information. The DoD has been wrestling this bear for 4 or 5 years now. And I think the bear has been winning up until now. Hopefully, the DoD is making some headway on this, and I want to point to a new DoD instruction that they just released that might shed some light on it, and I think it's important for DoD contractors to understand. So I'm going to share a particular document here and talk about this. This is DoD instruction 5230.24, which talks about distribution statements on technical information. Distribution statements is a fancy word to say how are we allowed to share this and under what rules. So, here's the primary, and for those of you who are listening versus watching, I guess I'll read some of this. The purpose of this directive, and it's just released January, January of this year, is to go off and establish policies and assign responsibilities and provide procedures for assigning distribution statements, which, like I said, is the DoD's way of managing how you share and don't share things for research, development, test, and evaluation, what they call RDT&E, engineering, acquisition, and sustainment. And if you're a defense contractor, you definitely work in one or more of those spaces. Also to denote the extent at which technical information is available for secondary release without prior additional approvals. And it creates a standard framework and markings for managing, sharing, safeguarding, and distributing technical information, what we call controlled technical information, in accordance with national and operational security, privacy, records management, intellectual property, federal procurement, and export control. Read that as ITAR. It aligns marking procedures for controlled technical information for defense contractors. That's a lot of what they get, CTI, in accordance with 5200.48, which is kind of the prior instruction, and Part 2002, Title 32 of the Code of Federal Regulations. And it's also designed to help originators of technical information, i.e., the program manager and to a lesser extent the contracting officer, to determine what extent technical information has to be controlled. So, and I'm not going to read this thing as like 30 plus pages, which for a DoD instruction could be both long and short. I've seen both of those. I've seen 2-page instructions and I've seen 200-page instructions. So could be either way. But if this is an area that you're involved in, I definitely recommend that you go off and look at it. So, it applies to everybody. The kinds of technical information they're talking about are engineering drawings, configuration management documentation, engineering data and associated lists, standards, specifications, technical manuals and reports and orders, blueprints, plans, and instructions, computer software and computer software documentation, catalog item identifications, data sets, studies and analysis, and other technical information that can be used or adapted for use to design, engineer, produce, manufacture, operate, repair, overhaul, or reproduce any military or space equipment or technology. So pretty much everything that every defense contractor does every day, this is kind of what this covers. And then there's a catch-all, other types of technical data. Um, so that's kind of the area, and it's basically everything that everybody deals with. It then goes on, spends 2 or 3 pages explaining who's responsible for what, which is fine. But then it goes on and talks about, it says, in terms of the procedures, all newly created, revised, or previously unmarked classified or unclassified DoD technical information has to be assigned a distribution statement. The distribution statement is, DoD only, DoD and contractors, no farm, whatever I'll talk about that in a minute, but that's what a distribution statement is, and probably most people who are familiar with those kind of things. So that's part of that. It says that the first page or cover page of any technical document must clearly display the distribution statement, including the letter code. And they've really simplified the distribution statement thing. So I'll very quickly go over that in a minute. When possible or appropriate, if you're going to do part marking, typically that's more used in the classified space. They say go do that. That says we're basically each paragraph is marked. And if a classified document contains CUI, control technical information, you need to have the CUI warning box, because the problem is that if it's classified and it gets downgraded to unclassified, it's still CUI, and they don't want people to get confused and think, oh, it's unclassified, I can do whatever I want with it. Nope, wrong. You can't. It's still CUI. So that's that. And then now it says, in a very clear statement, it says all classified CTI must be marked as CUI in accordance with 5200.48. Legacy material will not be required to be remarked while it remains under DoD control, or is used online only for the DoD. However, any such information or derivative information must be marked as CUI if a careful analysis determines that it qualifies. Unclassified CTI originated by or under the control of the DoD will be marked in a distribution statement. And procedures for marking DoD unclassified CTI now align with DoD instruction 5200.48. So those are kind of the two, the hand in glove here, 5200.48 and 5230.24. DoD controlled unclassified technical information will include CUI in the banner and footer of every page, and must include a distribution. And they've said this like 4 times now. And the controlling DoD office, the program office, will determine the distribution availability. And then they start talking about, all the different pieces of the distribution statement. Here's an example for those watching. Here's an example of a distribution statement. In this case, it's distribution statement E, which means distribution to authorized DoD only. So then now they say they add the ITAR stuff. They said all information found to contain export control technical information will be marked with export control warning, and any information so marked must also be assigned distribution statement B, C, D, or E, and specify export controlled as the reason for this assignment. The information must also include the notice to accompany the release of export control data, and only be released to entities qualified to receive it. So they're really trying to nail this down, and it's a challenge, but I think they did a good job here. And then if the technical information delivered to the government includes contractor-owned proprietary data, which is really, really important for contractors to make sure they don't gloss over this, because you give it to the government and it's not under some limited use restrictions, then they just basically they can do whatever they want. They give it to your competitor. So that's really important. Includes contractor-owned proprietary data or other third-party intellectual property described in Section 5, has to be clearly and legibly marked with the applicable data rights the government got. That's important. And then, like I said, this goes on for a while. So here's the distribution statements. Distribution statement A is public release. That's pretty obvious. Distribution statement B is U.S. government agencies, period. Now, U.S. government agencies is broader than DoD. So we'll see that there's another one for just DoD where they don't trust the rest of the government. Distribution statement C is authorized to U.S. government agencies and their contractors. Distribution statement D is DoD and U.S. DoD contractors only. Distribution statement E is DoD components only. That's where we don't trust the rest of the government. And distribution statement F is you can't distribute it any further unless they say you can. So that's kind of the distribution data. This is I mean, to me, this is a great document. I mean, they've started to make things clear. Now we got to train the contract program officers and contracting officers to understand this. But this is the guideline. And if you get pushback when they give you something, you say, "Oh, great, this is not CUI." You know, you can point to 5230.24 and say, "Well, it says here." Either you're breaking the law or this is not CUI. Which one are you doing? And you might get some hem and hawing, but they will go fix it because clearly they are violating the regulations if they do that. Now they say that they have a definition of control technical information, and they say that it doesn't include information concerning general scientific, mathematics, or engineering principles commonly taught in the education system. So that's a caveat, right? Publicly known is not CUI. Export control, then the export control warning. They talk about that. Here's an example of a export control warning box that has to be on the front page. This document contains technical data whose export is restricted by the Arms Export Control Act or the Export Control Reform Act. A violation of these export laws are subject to severe criminal penalties. They give you the law numbers and blah blah blah. So that's what, if you have ITAR or probably even EAR protected data, I would put that in there for sure. So this is kind of a great a document. If you don't have it, you can download it for free. Obviously, government documents are for the most part free. In theory, they should all be free, but most of them are. If you have questions about it, which after you read this, you might please reach out to us. We'll be happy to help you answer it. So with that, I will let you get back to important things, and thanks for listening.
Turnkey Cybersecurity and Privacy Solutions offers the complete cybersecurity program for small to medium-sized